Rain tapped softly against the window as Daniel sat alone in his small apartment. The city outside was quiet for once. Most people had already gone home, escaping the cold evening storm. Daniel stared at his laptop but couldn't focus on the screen. His mind had been heavy lately. Work was stressful, life felt repetitive, and the silence in his apartment sometimes felt louder than the city itself. Then suddenly, knock, knock. Daniel frowned. It was already past 10 p.m. He wasn't expecting anyone. The knock came again, this time a little louder. He walked to the door and opened it. Standing there, completely soaked from the rain, was someone he knew better than almost anyone in the world. Emily. Her hair was wet, her jacket dripping with rainwater, and her eyes looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. Emily Carter had been Daniel's best friend since college. For nearly 10 years they had shared everything: late-night conversations, career struggles, bad relationships, and endless jokes. But tonight she looked different. Vulnerable. "Hey," she said quietly. Daniel stepped aside immediately. "Emily, come in. You're freezing." She walked inside slowly, hugging her arms around herself. Daniel grabbed a towel and handed it to her. "What happened?" he asked gently. Emily hesitated. For a moment she just stared at the floor. Then she finally spoke. "Can I stay here tonight?" Daniel blinked in surprise but nodded without hesitation. "Of course." Emily swallowed and added softly. "Just one night, please." The words hung in the air. Daniel could tell something serious had happened. But he didn't push. "Sit down," he said. "I'll make some tea." A few minutes later they were sitting on the couch with 2 warm mugs in their hands. The rain outside grew heavier, tapping against the glass like distant footsteps. Emily wrapped her fingers around the mug but didn't drink. "I left him," she finally said. Daniel understood immediately. Her boyfriend. The relationship had always seemed complicated. "He cheated," she continued quietly. "And when I confronted him, he didn't even try to deny it." Daniel felt anger rise inside him. Emily deserved better. Much better. "You don't deserve that," Daniel said softly. Emily gave a weak smile. "Everyone says that. But it's true." For a while neither of them spoke. The room was filled only with the sound of rain. Finally Emily leaned back against the couch and sighed. "You know what the worst part is?" Daniel looked at her. "I feel stupid," she said. "Like I ignored every warning sign." Daniel shook his head. "That's not stupidity. That's trust." Emily looked at him quietly. "You always know what to say." Daniel laughed lightly. "That's what best friends are for." Emily smiled a little, and for the first time since arriving, her shoulders seemed to relax. An hour passed. They talked about old memories, college days, ridiculous adventures, and the time they got lost on a road trip because Daniel refused to use GPS. Eventually Emily yawned. "You can take the bed," Daniel said. She shook her head. "No, I'll sleep on the couch." "Emily." She looked at him. "You're the guest." Emily hesitated before nodding. "Okay, but only tonight." Daniel handed her a blanket and pillow. Before turning off the lights, she said something quietly. "Thank you for letting me stay." He smiled. "You never need to ask." Later that night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay awake thinking about Emily. About how fragile she looked when she arrived. About how much she trusted him. And about something he had never allowed himself to think before. The truth was, Daniel had always cared about Emily more than just a friend. But their friendship meant too much to risk. So he buried those feelings for years. The next morning sunlight pushed through the curtains. Daniel walked into the living room expecting to see Emily asleep on the couch. Instead she was standing by the window, looking outside. "Morning," he said. Emily turned and smiled softly. "Morning." She looked calmer now. "Thank you again," she said. Daniel shrugged. "Friends help each other." Emily hesitated. Then she said something unexpected. "Why have we never dated?" Daniel blinked. "That's a random question." Emily laughed slightly. "Maybe." Then she walked closer. "But seriously, we get along. We trust each other. We know everything about each other." Daniel didn't know how to respond. Emily watched his expression carefully. "You thought about it too, didn't you?" Daniel looked away. "Maybe once or twice." Emily smiled knowingly. "More than that." For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Emily said quietly, "Last night I realized something." Daniel waited. The person who showed up for me wasn't the man I was dating. She looked directly at him. It was you. Daniel felt his heart beat faster. Emily stepped closer. Maybe love doesn't always start with fireworks. She smiled softly. Maybe it starts with someone opening the door when you knock in the rain. Daniel laughed nervously. That's a pretty poetic way to say it. Emily shrugged. I had a long night to think. Then she said something that made Daniel freeze. So, what if we try? Daniel stared at her. You mean, us? Emily nodded. Yeah. He ran a hand through his hair. Emily, if it goes wrong we could lose our friendship. Emily stepped closer again. But what if it goes right? The room felt very quiet. Daniel thought about all the years they had known each other. All the laughter, all the support, all the trust. Finally he smiled. Okay. Emily's eyes widened slightly. Okay. She laughed in disbelief. That was easier than I expected. Daniel grinned. Well, you did ask very nicely. Emily shook her head. You're unbelievable. Then she hugged him. It was the kind of hug that felt different from all the others before. Warmer, longer, full of something new, something hopeful. Weeks passed. Their friendship slowly transformed into something deeper. Dinner dates replaced late-night phone calls. Walks in the park replaced casual coffee meetups. But the foundation never changed. They were still best friends. Just best friends who happened to fall in love. One evening months later they sat on the same couch where Emily had arrived that rainy night. Emily looked at him and smiled. You know something funny? What? If my ex hadn't cheated, none of this would have happened. Daniel laughed. Life works in strange ways. Emily nodded. Yeah. Then she leaned her head on his shoulder. Sometimes the worst night of your life leads to the best chapter of your story. Daniel wrapped an arm around her gently. Outside, rain began falling again. But this time the sound felt comforting. Because sometimes love doesn't begin with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it begins with a simple knock on the door. And a quiet voice saying, just one night, please.